Man, I should have retired sooner. I'm like, I'll take GM of the Hall of Fame if they want to give me one right now and help lead us to championships we don't even know about yet. That gives me goosebumps.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shell the Podcast. My name is Dan Shelley, a professional paintball photographer. And in this episode, I sit down with Yaya, who is often recognized as the goofiest, funniest, most outgoing person in paintball. But we go deeper and we talk about who Yaya is as a person, what he's gone through in his career, and what that decision was like to step away from the sport and go on to his next chapter. This is definitely one that you're not going to want to miss. Let's jump right into it.
Photographer of the Year, let's hear it for Dan Shelley, Shelda Photos.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Shell the Podcast, where today I am joined by what seems like the life of paintball. The man, the myth, the legend, the happiest guy in the world, you name it. He's got such a pedigree of his resume that we'll dive into. Yeah. But before we do that, I have two show sponsors that just mean so much to me personally. I've been partnered with Hormesis since I started the podcast, and just the support that Alex and the team have shown me has been wild. From gear, from I have like a custom ProFlex that I wear now at practices, and they will literally give the shirt off of their back. So it's been so cool partnering with Alex and Hormesis. And then of course BFP Gear, one of, if not the largest online paintball retailer. Junior and Gina Brown have treated me like family since I started into paintball, let alone the podcast. And so I've been hooked up with gear from them all season. For this season, fresh. I just got some fresh carbon pads a few weeks ago. So it's like putting on new shoes. You put on new pads for the first time. Like, they don't stink, they don't smell. Such a great feeling. So it's been so cool being partnered with them. But yeah, I've got Yaya on the show. How are you, man?
How we doing?
I'm doing great. It's been so cool to like just be at events the past few years and see your energy, see you off the camera. And I think a lot of people in the sport, they see you as the person and this character, but like, that's you. Like, I don't think people realize you are just so passionate about everything.
Yeah. My biggest thing is it's always, either way, when I wake up, or like, just because I play professional paintball, or, whoever whatever I've done or whoever I'm around, like, money, no money, doesn't matter. Like, I always hate when I see people who are like, they have two sides of them. And I always tell people they have a representing side and a real side. And, if I'm just the same person all the time, I don't ever have to worry about that. So, I definitely, being around paintball all my life, I love it. It's, it makes me who exactly, and I've said it before, like, and a few different times now. And I actually got the phrase from Alex Frazier. I was having a conversation with him, and he was just like, like, paintball isn't just like what we do. It's kind of who we are. It's our identity, right? Like, when you think about it, like when you think about Ryan Greenspan, Yosh, Oliver, Alex, like those guys, like that's their identity. Dynasty is their identity. With me, I wanted to do the same thing with Houston Heat, and it's my identity. And I helped start the team. I was there for every championship we've won, through thick and thin, and I absolutely loved it. So
is that,
yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Is that something that was always natural for you? And the reason why I ask is, for me, I'm 38, and up until recently, I've struggled with that identity of like saying that I like paintball, or I'm around it, or I'm involved in it. And so I feel like for me and some other people that are listening, like I'll go to work and like, I don't even talk about it until recently. Like, did you ever struggle with that?
So I'm 38 as well. And I'll say this, I started playing when I was 12 years old, and I was always known as the paintball kid. My friends and I, they went for my birthday for the first time. And then I just never really stopped playing. And I just kind of kept growing up to it. And even going through high school, like if I was gone on the weekends, and I didn't play any sports in high school anymore because I was playing paintball, and I loved every second of it. So yeah, like when I say it's like became my identity, I never really struggled with the fact that like to tell people about it. They just kind of always knew, like even when I'd be like anywhere, like I remember one day, like I was at a bar and somebody's like, "Oh, that's the paintball guys." And it's when I lived out in Latrobe with Tim Montrezl, Sam Monville, and Chad George and Ryan Moorhead. We literally would be together all the time, and they would just be like, "Oh, the paintballers are here." So, and Philly used to have a house that was actually 2 doors down from a bar called Falbo's, and they literally were the paintball guys. Like it was a college there that went to like the bar all the time, but they were the paintball guys, and it's kind of like that's just kind of always what I've been known as, and everybody kind of knows that. And sometimes I don't even know if people know that, but all of a sudden like, "Oh, so you play paintball?" And I'm like, "I do." And then we kind of get into it, and they find it, it's different because the biggest thing I ever hear is, oh, I didn't even know that was a profession. And then all of a sudden, like, or I hear it in the airport, like, I didn't know that was a thing, or they see like, welts on your neck or whatever it may be. And it's like, oh, I didn't know. But it's like, well, that's kind of, something I kind of take a great pride in as far as like, talking about paintball and everything else, and like just kind of letting people know and trying to help, as much as I can, like inform people like, yeah, it's a professional sport, like travel around the world. There's like, they take it very serious in Europe. They take it very serious in Canada. America is truly, and, I'll probably catch backlash for this, but American pros are truly the best professionals. And I mean, I'm pretty sure they just went to Nations Cup, 2 years in a row, and showed everybody why the girls, why the kids, why the men's, while, over 40 and everything, like, what do they call the Masters?
Yeah, the old guys.
They just, and I don't want to say they shit stomp them, but when you go and you win and you dominate that much, it's like, and it's nobody's fault. We're just naturally, we have that luxury of playing paintball as much as we can, and it's a lot more affordable in America than it is in Europe. So I want to tell people a lot of times it's a luxury sport, but at the same time, like America truly does dominate because we have so much talent here, and there's so much talent that people haven't even seen. Like California, going out there and watching Dub C, there's so much talent out there. It's like, man, so many of these guys can play pro. And it's like, it's a whole nother world, but at the same time, it's just like, man, I love every second of it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That has been something that it sounds has been natural for you since you started. And for me, it's been different where like I've struggled with whenever I would tell somebody, oh, I play paintball or I do this on the weekends, I would get that kind of weird look like, what is that? And it was so off-putting that like it almost made me retract and say, you know what? I actually don't want to tell people I do this until recently. And then now after listening to, pros like you, and Marcelo does a great job of this wher
he's a very good representation of paintball. Like he is live with paintball, and I respect it a lot because of the fact that he does, and Tyler does the same thing like every day. Like their lives are paintball, and it's like, and I mean, even with you, like when you're editing photos or you're going through video or even doing things to the podcast, it's just like that's just who I am and like what I do. And you got to think about it. Like, you do it because you love it every day. It's not like it's so rewarding when we're getting millions of dollars, but at the same time, we would all love that, but it's paintball and we love every second of it.
That's exactly it right there. So, doing all the things with the photography and with the podcast, it became my identity and it became who I was. And I don't think I ever truly had that until getting into the photo side of it. And so it became that where when people ask me about it, like I'm excited to talk about it and I educate them and here's exactly what it is. There's a whole entire professional worldwide sport for it.
You have a better resume than anybody because you have all the photos to prove.
It's cool.
Like, and it's like, wow, this guy has really good work. And like, this is an action sport. So if you can do like catch this many great shots in an action, then it's like, wow, like everything you do is just like, boom, there it is.
Yeah. The legitimizing or whatever the word is, for me, the past few years is one, winning photographer of the year. So like I have that on my desk at work. But the other big thing is I landed the cover of the magazine this past year, the Great American Paintball. Yep. And so now when people walk by and they're like, oh, what's that? And I explain, I'm like, yeah, this is actually my photo. And you just see the unlock of like, whoa, like you did that. And they just become so open to like listening about paintball. It's so cool.
Yeah. So, and you got to think about it too. Like there's different artists for different things in this sport that it unlocks. And you're an artist as a photographer. And, like with me as a professional, I had to become an artist and master my craft and what I do there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it. And like you said, like it's almost like an icebreaker for people to open up and see, but without like you doing your job, people wouldn't even know exactly like what it would be. Right. And I had that conversation with Frank Connell one day, and he's like, and Frank was truly a great player in the game. And he still plays now, and he still wins a lot. But as he got older and everything else, like Father Time caught up to him. But at the same time, how good he was, a lot of people won't know because they didn't have like people like you guys out there, you know, making videos or, you know, having social media and things like that. So, and that's just like one example, right? Like there's so many guys out there. And I think the Dynasty guys have done a good job by sticking with it for so long. But at the same time, it's like there was so much like obviously with the Ironman, you know, like all the history they had and everything else. So, like I said, it's just something that without you doing the things you did and you're doing now, then I wouldn't even be recognized as that, like, you know, as a person or as a Leopard King or, you know, or as Chad or anything else, or to have to like somebody to tell that story. So
I appreciate that. I think one of the photos I took of you, whatever the event was, I think Chicago. Yeah. Like where it's like almost a close up of your mask. It was late in the day. Yeah. It's one of my favorite photos I took last season. Just like you could see your eyes, your emotion. And that was just something that it was like the right time, the sun and everything. And it was cool. Like to share that with you and share that with the HK guys, like everyone was so hyped about it.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Leopard King, I do want to jump back really quick. So I've got a Discord, you know, for my podcast. And when I mentioned in there that I was going to have you on, I had a side chat from somebody, and I won't say who he is just in case he doesn't want me to, but I had literally 3 or 4 paragraphs of what he told me about how you've inspired him. And so I want to read a little bit of it and get your thoughts on it.
Okay.
Let's see here. So apparently there was a Dizon Docker video that he came out with 2019. And he said, I don't know specifically what it was, but just seeing Yaya in action, it clicked. He had this incredible energy that drew me in. He wasn't just a player. He was the guy that you wanted to be around, funny, charismatic, and absolutely on fire when it came to the game. I remember watching the video thinking, I need to be a part of this. So I immediately dropped $2,000 at the time from A&S Gear. Shout out to them for what he said. At that point, I had no real tournament experience. I was just playing at my local field for fun. Yaya inspired me in ways I didn't even realize at first. My number I wear was inspired by him. All the Leopard gear that I wear, definitely a nod to the style that he brought to the game. The way he carries himself as a person is what I carry myself today.
That's inspirational.
Do you realize that you inspire people?
That gives me goosebumps. So, no, that's awesome because I don't look at it like that. I just look at it as, you know, I'm just being myself. And I'll be honest, Ronnie does a good job by pulling out like the funny stuff that I do. Just because, you know, he captures so many moments over the years. And it's just, I don't know why I just never was really shy around the camera. I was just always I don't know. I guess I, in a sense, loved it. But at the same time, like, I remember even when I brought the Leopard idea to HK, and they were just like, I don't think that'll sell. And Marky backed me up so much on that. And I actually bet one of the head designers that the Leopard stuff would sell because I bet him a beer. And he's like, I don't think you'll sell 20 shirts. And then when it popped off, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he still owes me that beer too. But
that beer is probably now a few $100,000 beer at this point with how much Leopard stuff is sold.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like it's and I've had a lot of support and inspiration from a lot of people. Marky being one of them. You know, like a lot of coaches that have come like and done that. And I've also faced times too where it's like, you know, people just shit on you. But at the same time, it's like if you believe in yourself and you're just yourself, then I think that like anybody can be very successful with that.
Gosh, I love that. And yeah, it's so interesting when you hear how you've inspired people that you just don't even imagine are out there. Like that's just one story.
Yeah. And I thank him a lot for that. And it's great because the fact that like, if I'm not sitting there thinking about just trying to inspire somebody and they're inspired by it, then it makes me feel good knowing the fact that like, you know, I've helped somebody do something, right? Give them some kind of purpose or anything else. And I love it because the fact that like if it wasn't for Ronnie, like bringing out like with the Dizon docs and then, you know, people being able to see that, I couldn't be more thankful. Yeah.
It's cool to see what we're doing and the things that you've done and have inspired people in the sport. Jumping into, you know, I think it's been documented over the past few months that you've obviously stepped into, or you're stepping into the next part of your career by retiring from stepping on the field. Before we talk about what's next, talk to me about what that was like to make that decision, you know, because I think so many people when they think about retirement, it has impact on their family. So I'm sure you've had conversations with your wife about it. Like
Yeah,
what
she tried to talk
went,
me out of it.
yeah. So tell me about that.
So, I'll say this. Ever since I was a kid, everybody's always like, it was my only dream just to play professional paintball. Like, that's all I wanted to do. And I meet kids now that's all they want to do. And I love it because of the fact that, like, they're on the same path as myself. But at the same time, like, the next question everybody's going to ask is, what are you going to do after paintball? What happens if you can't play forever? And I always had to try to prepare for that moment. And it's not like we're in a sport that pays us millions of dollars, right? I remember the day after I graduated high school, I became a janitor and I was already a telemarketer. And I did that all through like going to college just for the mere fact of like I needed to be able to pay for paintball. Like my family wasn't very like wealthy like that and it's a luxury sport that we play. And I was understanding of that very young, and paint was actually more expensive back then. And, I was always willing to work for it and everything else. But at the same time, when I come back around to it and it's like, hey, like this moment, or you just kind of know, like if you got to make a decision, what's best for your family or, what's best for your job and everything else, you gotta be able to hang it up at some point. And I still love paintball. I'll still go to the paintball field and play and everything else. I just won't play professionally, and I'm okay with that. Just from the fact of like I can sit in my room and look around, and I see the trophies and I know the memories and everything else. And the way that I was treated on Houston Heat, and even how I got my opportunity to play professional paintball, it's inspirational to myself, and the fact of like just how good we were treated on Houston Heat. I don't think any other team will have the same luxury as that. So like, I can never imagine myself going to play for another team. So if I was to hang it up as a Houston Heat player, I'm okay with all that. And like, I've come to terms with it. My wife fought me on it for a little bit. Guys at the field tried talking me out of it, but no. Even the owner, he wasn't really sure like if he was going to let me do it or not. So at the same time, I shout out to them, the Smiths family and everybody else. But the way they treated me and how I got to do it, I'm okay with it, right? So it's something you got to come to terms with, and you got to realize like real life does catch up. And if you have an opportunity to be successful somewhere else, then you got to take it.
Yeah, and I think that's what so many people struggle with, right? Is opportunities come and they sometimes sound too good to be true, and so they don't even look at it like that's not going to happen. Like there's something off there, and they just let it bypass. And I think you've seen so many greats in other sports where they retire, they come back, and they go to different teams. And I think that hurts their legacy.
Yes. And my biggest thing too is, and I'll be honest with you, Alex Goldman called me right after. I couldn't even talk to him because I was kind of emotional after I did it. And he's like, you can still come back. And I'm pretty sure when he was younger, he's left and come back. And he's truly one of the greats, one of the most elite players in the game to this day, right? And he went pro when he was really young. But at the same time, like the reaction and the how some people like took it and everything else, and how much love and people took the time to reach out and say anything to me meant the world to me, just for the mere fact of like they really truly like they didn't have to do that. They took time out of their day to recognize something that I did, right? And I don't want there to ever be like a Tom Brady situation where he's like, just kidding, I got my good speech out last year, but now I'm really done type of thing. And it's like I saw that and I was like, I don't plan on doing that. So, but you never know. Like, right? Like, get a phone call someday and it's like, hey, we're gonna need you for this one thing, and it's like, but you never know if it's gonna ever happen. So I don't ever plan on it happening. But at the same time, like if Randy ever called me and asked for my help on anything, then I'd be there in a heartbeat for him. So
yeah, that's family, right? Like that's people that you spent so many weekends with for the past however many years, 10, 15 years, I think. With them.
They've watched me grow up as a kid from 21, 22 years old. And I'm 38 now. And it's like just everything that we've experienced, and like even from going on to Orange County Choppers with them to going, flying all over Europe. I remember we went to Fedorov had a wedding in Ukraine. We went to that. I've been to Russia with Mishka and those guys, and it's just the amount of literally the memories that we have. It's just it's unheard of, right? And it's like I couldn't be more appreciative of it. So,
talk to me about the flip side of that, then, right? So, like you've created so many incredible memories with your career, and now you're at a point where you're essentially turning a page and it's blank. Like, who knows what's next?
Yeah.
Like, what is that page turning like for you?
So I actually. I don't know if it hasn't hit me yet that I've like retired from the game, because my life every day is paintball. And, talking about paintball and everything else, like I did that all the time. The biggest thing I think I see right now is how much I would have already flown this year, with like going to practices and things like that. But at the same time too, it's like, like I'm still going to be at events. I just won't be gone for 2 weeks at a time. So it's kind of nice because, I get to spend a little more time with my family. But at the same time, I still am like evolved with paintball, right? Like I still talk to a lot of people, and like I just talked to Chris Soya last night, and it's just like, it's not like I plan on like disappearing from the game. I still love the game so much, and I still love the people and the atmosphere. Sometimes I almost thought that like I love just everything about the game other than playing, right? Yeah. And it was like, if I could still be around and still have those friendships and everything because that's all I've ever known since high school is paintball people. Like I have a lot of friends from high school, but I have a lot of friends that I consider family from paintball. And, it's just like, I don't feel like it hasn't like set in, or some people have even said to me like that I've talked to on the phone, I guess it won't hurt until you don't play in the tournament, but it's like, I don't know if it'll ever hurt. But it's just because like, I felt like I was okay with walking away, right? Like it wasn't like, I something like an injury came and I couldn't play anymore or anything else. And I was given so much and so many opportunities, and so many like nice people had reached out where I was like, I'm okay with all this. Like I can settle with this. So, I mean, I don't know if I'll have that feeling. Sure. I feel like it's not that my life hasn't changed. I don't go to the paintball field every single weekend. Like I'm training for something, which is kind of nice because, I've got to do a lot more things actually with my wife, even over this last like 6 weeks. It's just like, I kind of like it. It's nice, and I'm still involved with paintball, and I love everything about paintball. I love everybody in paintball, and it's sweet. So,
did that making that decision? Was there any fear or apprehension about what either potential players or friends in the sport would think of you, or would they not become your friends because you're making that decision?
I only have one guy that really hasn't really talked to me since I have kind of walked away from the game. But at the same time, everybody has been so supportive, and, I might even talk to some people even more. But at the same time, like I do have a circle of friends that I do, I keep close. A lot of the teammates, those guys, I actually truly felt bad like when I walked away, because the new guys that came to the team, I like all those guys a lot, because, Ronnie and I worked with those guys coming up through Blast Camp when I lived in the Midwest. And, I think they have a lot of potential, and they just needed some other guys around them to really stand out. And I think that they will do that. So, I guess I just didn't get the opportunity to be around those guys as much as I wanted to, just as like teammates and everything, right? Like I've been in a lot of practices with those guys and things like that. But at the same time, I still talk to a lot of the guys from the team, everybody, like even then they had a practice a couple weeks ago, they told me how much they missed me, but at the same time, I didn't really think too much about it. Could be because I was at Disney with my wife, but at the same time, it just, I'm happy where I'm at right now with it. And I think that, there is going to be probably a fear one day of like, okay, what am I going to do? But I also feel like I've set myself up being with a company like Defy that, I'm very, very happy with. And, I stay so busy with it that I don't even know if there's time to even worry about like my own emotion with it, just because I feel like we're doing so much every single day. So it's like, and maybe that could be it right there. It's like, it's a distraction of that, but I love every second of it so far, and I'm embracing the journey on it. So.
Yeah. Thank you for being vulnerable with that, because that's selfishly, that's something I am going through right now, where like the photos have taken off, and like now the podcast, and I'm enjoying it so much that
you don't want to lose it.
Well, one, I don't want to lose it, but the time, right? Like the time that it takes to do this, the time that it takes to do the photos, run the business side of it, that I've noticed I'm growing that so much that it's seeping into my personal life. And so the time with my wife is becoming less, and like, that's obviously not the good thing to do. And so it's,
and you'll figure out how to balance it. It is very difficult, but at the same time, I think that, and I used to run into this all the time with like, when I was younger, when I dated people, a lot of times they didn't like how much I was on the road, but like my wife, she's never complained about it one time. She probably likes it when I'm gone a little more. But at the same time, she knows like that was my passion, it's my job. And at the same time, it's like, she just wants me to be happy. And so she's always supported me with it, and never really questioned it or anything like that. So I couldn't be really more support, like have a better support system at home. And I mean, even I said it like when I retired, like a lot of my family, like they just kind of accepted like that was what I wanted to do and everything else. And like that, I missed so many different things that they probably would have loved me for to be there. Just because like the energy that I bring in paintball, like my family's the same way. And it's just like a good time, right? Like it's always very energetic and real fun. And that's just something that I think that you're going to find a happy medium to it. But like you said, you're invested into it because of the time, the memories, and it's something you love. And it's good because I think that everybody should have that. Like you go to your job and everything else, but if there's something that doesn't make you happy or that makes you click like that, then I recommend everybody to find that, because who knows what, like the world's a crazy place right now. And it's like, if you don't have like your alternative to turn to a positive direction, and paintball, I think it is like a lot of positive directions for a lot of people. There's a lot of struggle in it, but at the same time, like that's what makes it great, right? That's what makes winning so great, is because if it was easy, everybody would do it. So
yeah. And like the amount of impact that paintball has on people is wild. There's super quick. There's two people at my local field. This kid Bondo, he's 23 years old. He's running a business. He has his own brand. There's a 13-year-old, I think his name is Amari. And, he's like a typical 13-year-old. He's running his mouth, like he's the best player out there. Yeah. And, so he's kind of gotten into some, like heat with some of these teams where he's been running his mouth, and Bondo pulled him aside. He was like, hey, listen, he's like, you show me your report card, and if I see 2 or 3 A's on it, like I'll give you some Bondo gear. And like, you just saw it click in the kid. He was like, whoa, someone believes in me. And like, he now wants to go back and work harder. And that's from paintball. Like that wouldn't have happened anywhere else.
Correct. And I felt like, it wasn't like I was the best student in the world, but my parents would not let me play paintball if I had bad grades. But at the same time, like, if you can focus on that, and then you have that outlet with paintball that it keeps your focus on. So it's like, I recommend every kid to, obviously study hard, be themselves, but at the same time, play paintball because you love it, not because, chasing fame or anything else. Luckily, I did, I had an impact on, becoming the Leopard King, or, just meeting so many people and having the opportunities that I did. But at the same time, it never really made me like steer away from the path of like how lucky I am, and to never like stop like working on that. Right.
Yeah. It seemed like you always kept that true to yourself, as like throughout your journey, like through all the fame and whatnot, you kept coming back to like who you are as a person. And I think some people lose that.
And well, it's a lot of it's being humbled too, right? Like, so my dad told me this a long time ago, and he gave me a lot of great advice. I can be a legend in my own mind. But if I swallow my pride and realize that, like, I never know how somebody's day's going or anything like that. But if I'm just open to the fact of like, hey, like, just be yourself and don't act like, you're not the guy who like won a bunch of World Cups. Like nobody cares in the bar how many World Cups you won, right? Or even when I was playing video games, like I used to get so mad at Frank Cano when we'd play in games, but it was fun, but we'd still go back to it. But at the same time, it's like, I remember one day I was like, guys, it doesn't matter how many games we win or lose or how many times we die. We're just having fun together, right? Yeah. And it's like, nobody cares unless, you're making an impact on somebody's life or just being a kind person. And I'd rather be known as being a kind person and being there for everybody else than worrying about like everybody knowing like, oh, this guy's got this many championships and everything else, right? So
yeah, it's that what they call it, the high school Letterman jacket, right?
Yeah.
Like you're still wearing your jacket from 20, 30 years ago if you're rocking that way.
I think Kevin Hart did a movie like that with when he went back to high school, and like Dwayne Johnson was in it. It's so funny.
Yeah, those two are a great pair with each other.
Oh yeah. So.
You mentioned your wife a few times, and it sounds like she's been a pretty motivational part of you and your journey. I think, I don't remember, it had to be maybe Ronnie's thing or maybe a post that you did at some point where I think she works in the news industry, right?
Yeah. That's actually what brought us to Myrtle Beach. She's a news anchor for that's NBC's affiliate down here in Myrtle Beach. And I couldn't be happier that we moved here. I love this place so much, and she likes it too a lot. But yeah, she is definitely she's big time, right? Like I got World Cups like sitting on my shelf, but she's 2-time Emmy winner for like shows and things that she's done and stuff like that. So yeah, her trophies trump all mine. So, and she's super humble with it, and it's like something cool that I saw, right, with last year we had the PGA came to Myrtle Beach, and she literally had a flock of ladies that cared nothing about golf, but were there just to take a picture with her. And I pulled my phone out and I was like, how do you feel? And she was just like, she literally was like, I feel like you, and people ask you for your autograph. And I'm like, no, I was so proud of her because the fact that
so cool.
she doesn't understand like the inspiration like that she does like around the local community, and it's like she's inspirational just as much, right? So
Yeah.
she gives way more her time than I'd probably be willing to give of mine. So she's something special.
That had to have been such a special moment for you because like kids come up to you all the time, even grown men, like, I want to take a picture of you, can I have your autograph? And so for you to give that back to your wife must have been so cool for you.
Yes. And she was like, when she told me, she's like, I felt like you. And I was like, oh, that was cool. And yeah, she doesn't think about it because all she does is she goes to work, she comes home and she looks at it like she's doing a job, but she doesn't understand like she's on TV. Like she's the big time here, right? And it's like the amount of people that she knows and that the networking that she's done is insane. So it's like she's a whole nother level.
Yeah,
so.
she sounds like she's very humble, just like you.
Yeah, she's very inspirational. She's funny, and some days I like to think that she's funnier than me, but I never admit that to her. So it works out.
Hopefully, she won't listen to this.
Oh, I'm sure she will. So.
One of the questions I have about that is obviously the sphere of people that you're around, right? Is a lot of paintball folks and people in that business, and she's around obviously people in obviously the ME space, NBC, and all that.
Yeah.
What are those conversations like when she's introducing you to her network of people and you're like, hey, I'm Chad, I'm a professional paintball player. Like, talk to me about that.
So a lot of times, like I said it earlier, like I don't know if they know that or not, right? But like she's obviously probably like told enough people in the background, or like people ask her what her husband does. She likes to brag about it more than I do. And she's like the second like I meet people from her work and everything else, they're honestly very, very nice. And they're more curious about paintball than I am about their job, because I know what they do with their job every day. Like, they're on TV.
Yeah.
But with me, like that's something they don't know enough about, right? And I mean, I remember even when I was at LAX a couple weeks ago, and I was sitting next to this guy's an older guy, and he thought I was in the Army. And I was like, no. I was like, it's just a sponsor that I have like in the past. And he was like, so curious about it. And he was 7 years old, but he had so many questions. And that's how they are too. Like they're just very curious, like, okay. And like, hear stories about traveling, and you got to think about it. Like I've got to travel probably more than a lot of people will ever do in their lives, which makes me very like humbled and everything else. But the questions they have and like how curious they are, it's great because they're very curious about something that I've done, and I know what they do because I get to see it every day. So for me to have that ability to talk about paintball and, kind of open them up to like another world, or who knows, like when I tell them a story, then they might want to take their kids, or, if their husbands might want to play, or even if it's a guy, like if he wants to go and play, now he knows a little bit more about paintball where he wants to go and try it. So, and I think that we're still in that stage where like when people say we're trying to grow paintball, like that's something that helps grow paintball. And it's just getting people to the ability to try it. Right.
Yeah, and Alex Fragi said that on his episode where he was dropping his kids off at school, I think, and a parent asked him about it, and like they were so curious, and then he ended up doing like a parents' day, I think, at his local field, and so he and then is growing, paintball too. Let's shift gears a little bit, and obviously for those who are not watching on YouTube, you're rocking a Defy shirt.
I am indeed.
I've seen Defy.
Let it fly with Defy, baby.
Yeah, I've seen Defy over the past few years, and my relationship with them is I've looked at them as like, oh, it's like a small business. Like I see them here and there, but now my local field, the GM there, Benji Outlaw, like he's rocking with Defy, and so I'm seeing Defy literally everywhere. Like I cannot open Instagram without seeing a post from Defy. So like,
I love that. I love it.
Tell
it's
me
not
about
going to stop either.
Good. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So I will say this, I got the opportunity from Defy to come work for them. My contract was up with HK. They gave me, not only did they bring me in open arms, but, people like Tom Martinez were there. It was somewhere where, I was happy to take an opportunity to leave HK and to try out, right? Like I felt like it was, I got on the phone with like, who is my boss? His name's David. And I'll tell you what, I don't think I've ever connected with so many great people in like one spot, right? Like from the day that I walked in to even to this day now, like the conversations that we have and how much time we spend on the phone, I absolutely love it. It's a paintball manufacturer that they're just trying to break the walls down and have the opportunity to, get paint into people's local fields. We just merged with weapons. So now everything's under one umbrella. So now everything's Defy. Obviously with that came Todd Martinez. So and he's been at the company long before myself. And then the first person I ever heard about Defy from actually was Bobby Aviles. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. So, shout out to Bobby, rest in peace, Bobby.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's kind of what brought Todd Martinez in, because Bobby and Todd were really close. And then, once that kind of happened, that transition with Todd, he was like, hey, man, I think that we have an opportunity here to bring you over here and take us to another level. And I was like, okay. And I thought about it, and I didn't take too long, because a lot of times when opportunities like that do happen, right? Like I said, I'm 38. I took full advantage of it, jumped on a plane, went out, met everybody. And I probably one of the best plane rides I ever had, just because I was so excited about it. But at the same time, like the second I got off the plane, I was like, yeah, this is the right decision for me. So, but like I said, it's a paintball manufacturer, and now we have like opportunities as far as sponsoring teams go, making, it's weapons has been transitioned into it. So we're just not making just jerseys and pants. We're going to do a lot of custom clothing and things like that. As far as the paint goes, it literally, I cannot express how many people like that use our paint are happy with it. Right. Our biggest thing, and I learned this from the president, Rob. He's like, hey, if we ever have problems with it, take care of the customer. We'll take care of it internally. And it literally, like, he sticks by it every day. And I think with that mentality of how good the customer service is, it beats out a lot of people who have been around for so long that don't carry that customer service, right? Or that are really trying to skimp on the money and things like that. And that's not their intention. Their biggest thing is customer service, quality products, offering more, having more to offer for players and fields and things like that, right? So, and now they started manufacturing with BBs, and airsoft's a whole nother game. And it's like, there's a lot of opportunity there. I'm very excited about it because, like you said, they weren't a big name for a little while. And when you go to social media, I want it where every time somebody opens up anything, they're seeing Defy, right? And I just think that, like, that's just how I think that the world's gone these days as far as the marketing goes. It's social media. And if you have that opportunity to continue to put Defy, I mean, I want to be able to have that supply for people. So it works out.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly working because, like I said, I literally can't open my phone without not seeing it. And I used to look at, obviously, like the two colors I think that you guys use a lot are the green and then that blue, which I used to associate with like North Carolina Tar Heel blue. But now it's almost this is Defy blue now because I see it all the time.
Yep. And something, too, that is like, that we got the opportunity to do was, Konstantin Fedorov being picked up by the Tauntauns. We reached out to them. And, a lot of people didn't know it, but Defy was with the Russians for 2 years. Nobody knew because we weren't in the NXL yet. And B, like the Russians have had 2 amazing seasons, right? Going and picking up Justin Rabikov, phenomenal move. The guy is phenomenal at paintball. They win championships. They won the series title. People still didn't know that they were sponsored by Defy. And that's something that when I came in here, I wanted to change. I wanted to make sure that people knew, if we were with a team that, we were, even if we weren't in the NXL or anything else yet, like we still sponsor this team. And I think that, going and having the Tauntauns and going to have that opportunity to sponsor them, I think is a great move. And then, we have Harris which was the ML Kings, which is now New York Extreme. They've done a great job by putting our name out there, and they do it every single weekend. So it's like we're edging certain situations, right? And we're getting into areas and we're breaking down walls, and the sky's the limit. And I think we might even go through the sky on it. So it's just like we keep the mentality of having great products and great customer service, and step up our marketing even more. And it's like, hey, we're right here to contend with every other big company, along with provide people with a great product and customer service.
Yeah, you just led me to the question I was going to ask next. It seems like you came into Defy with a marketing mind and like a branding mind. Is that anywhere in your background at all?
I don't think it's in my background. It's just something, I'll just say this, HK is number one at it, right? And working with them for a year, I got to see just how they move, how positive it was. And they sponsored me for 6 years before that, right? Yeah. And I see the effect of how good they do things with marketing. And it's like, if people don't understand, then like they don't have a marketing program, I'm not going to give them any kind of secrets, but at the same time, it's like, you got to understand, you can't be a dinosaur. It's got to be the way of the world. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like I said before, the things that you do with players as far as, pictures, videos, you having a podcast. It is the way of the world to start opening up, because everybody has an iPhone in their hand or some kind of phone that has the internet on it. If you can get that into their hands every single day, they're going to start to remember it, or they're going to start to result to going where Defy is, or when they think of paintball, they think of Defy. And that's the biggest thing I want is people to do is when they think of paintball, they think of Defy. And, we're in there, like you said, the last couple of weeks, we've been hot on the internet, and I don't plan on stopping. And that's something that maybe I got the mentality from HK. And I said it actually with Tyler Marcello. Like, I couldn't be more appreciative of everything that HK did for the amount of sponsorship and the clothes and everything else, that they gave Houston Heat, and just how good and how close everybody got with it. It was phenomenal. But they created a monster, and that monster is here to unleash a lot. So I couldn't be more excited about it. That's and, cool. I think that unintentionally they did it, but when I sit back and I look at how many great things they taught me, I can't say enough positive things. Right. But let's take it to another level, and we'll see what we can do from there. Right.
Yeah, that's life advice right there, right? Is you're around people or a business, and you're always listening, you're always learning. Ryan Greenspan said that on his podcast when he was a kid. Like, he was in the rooms with the guys at JT, and he was always listening about the conversations they were having with their marketing.
Ryan is one of the smartest guys with that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, he's done a great job with it. I believe now he's an ambassador for him, but I'm pretty sure he's been an ambassador since I was a kid. Maybe they didn't put that label on him, but
officially, yeah.
Yeah. When I was a kid, that's all you saw. You saw Alex, Oliver, Yosh, and those guys, even Todd. And it's like, he did a great job with it, and he's doing a great job with it. And, for him to go out and, start working with them and everything else, it's a smart move on his part. So.
Yeah, I think, people that are in like the know of the pros know what Ryan does, but I think the general, public of paintball, like the divisionals, they don't understand how much this guy does for the sport. It's wild.
Yeah. He, I believe they did a little following a couple years ago about guys with paintball and social media and everything else. Ryan was number 1. I was number 2. Ronnie was number 3, and Marcel was number 4. And I look at all 4 of those, like all 3 of those guys, including myself, and it's like, well, yeah, like, we truly love paintball, and like every single day we're doing it. Right. And there's probably 10, 15 guys in there that could literally say the same thing. But at the same time, like, our numbers just hit and clicked, and it works. But I mean, in my eyes, he's done a really good job with it for a long time. For him to go and now call himself an ambassador, I get it. I think it's a great move on their part. He's a smart guy, and he probably knows this sport more than anybody could even imagine. So he's seen it all.
Yeah, he truly has.
And he's done a good job by creating a lifestyle for himself with it. So, hats off to him.
Talk to me about Todd Martinez. So obviously you've been around him what seems like for your whole entire career. Like, you've played against each other, been on the same team. He's been a coach of you, and now you're essentially business colleagues. Talk to me about how that relationship has evolved over the years.
So Todd and I met in 2007. I played for Greg Pauly and Vicious at the time. And Pauly brought Todd and Alex Goldman to Omaha for all the kids to meet and to, kind of like give us good advice on it. And like, as we were coming up and everything else, the next year I went and played for Aftershock. I went pro, but at the same time, I met Todd there. He was always somebody that, not only was he inspirational, he was always doing custom guns, custom clothes, I always saw him doing something, like, and he always had that business mindset. But at the same time, he was so great at like everything he did with it. It was like you wanted to be a part of it. The biggest thing I would say is like he's just so inspirational because he's just easy to, he knows it's not just he's always right or anything else. He's just easy to work with on the mere fact of like, hey, if somebody's got an idea, let's hear it, let's work it out, and we'll all win together, right? Like, he's not a selfish person. He's a great leader with things. He's a guy that will, like, you want to go and win a championship for and hand him the trophy. And I remember the first time we did get to win a championship together, and he led us to a few other finals with it, right? So, it was one of my ideas to bring him in as a coach, and I thought it was a great idea because, he's inspirational. He's a guy that at the time, like, you have a lot of guys who are superstars on the team, and they just need that extra step, and he does that, right? And he's special to me because everything that he's ever done, and even him giving me the opportunity to come over here with Defy, like, I would have never known to even have that opportunity if it wasn't for him. So, he's very special in my heart to that. And the fact that like, we've done a lot together. And I think that, I told him I'm gonna have to get my CDL license because we're gonna have to get a big old semi that says Defy on it. And we'll be driving down the road doing our own short bus features.
Yeah. Defy style.
Yeah, there you go. And so, but yeah, no, he's somebody for the books that he was on my wall as a kid, He was a guy that he was one of the first guys ever sponsored by DC. He played on Avalanche. Then he went to, Aftershock. Then from Aftershock, not only did he go and beat Dynasty in a World Cup final, but at the same time, then he went to Dynasty and he won so many championships. And it was like that, to me, like he's one of my favorite people in the entire world, but he's just so inspirational that if so many kids got to follow his career like I did, like they would understand like why we're so close, right?
Yeah.
So I love every second of it. I love being around him. I don't think we've ever had like a moment where we didn't laugh, right? Like him and I, he's just so funny. So it's and he's inspirational. So it makes it great. So
have you done any reflecting and like thought about that where when you were a kid you had Todd on your walls and now you are essentially a business colleague with him? Like, does that connect at all?
I guess not until I just said that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it really is because it's like you never know, right? Like everybody says, when there's a saying about like, you got your heroes and everything else. And it's like, if you get the opportunity to work alongside of them, or even I said it earlier, I was on the phone with Chris Soya yesterday and he's been one of the nicest guys in the world to me, like I've ever met. And Chris Soya was to me, like when I was a kid, he was the first guy who ever did it, right? Like he was the first guy that not only like, he had his own gun. He, if you weren't doing what Chris Soya did, then you were just missing out, right? And there's a lot of players like that. And Chris wasn't even my very, very favorite. I just watched him so much and how he played up the center. That gave me so much inspiration on how to do things, right? John Richardson, LB Fowl, like those guys are so like they probably don't even realize like the impact that they had, even on myself or anybody else. But when I think about Todd and how he was on my walls and everything he did as far as business mindset, I probably was inspired by him first. Just for even I used to just do I used to design like laser engraved Luxes. Like I wanted to put a story on a Lux and and just have everybody to have a Lux and have the coolest looking Lux. And if it was different, I remember I put Macho Man Randy Savage on it once, or the Ninja Turtles, and people were just like, "This is crazy." But he inspired me to do things like that, right? So I would sit on planes and just think about, hey, what can I do next? And he's a reason why I have those inspirations in my head like that. So
does he know any of this? Like, have you told him any of that?
No, maybe I'll get drunk and tell him, or if he just watches the podcast.
I'm gonna clip this out and send it to him specifically.
There you go.
The reason why I asked, like, I think he's such a good friend for you, and obviously a colleague, and almost that mentor father figure. I think it would mean so much for him to know that, to share these things to him.
Yeah, maybe I'll get wasted and tell it to him, maybe with tears in my eyes, making a move. No. Yeah, I remember the first week I came here, he was actually going on a family vacation. He was just like, I remember sitting next to you and talking about like wanting to be great. And he's like, this is one of those moments where it's time for you to be great. And I'm like, I agree. And I remember when he sold it to the guys for me to come to Defy, he's like, this guy can help lead us to championships we don't even know about yet. And to watch him sit across the table and say that, I was just like, it gave me goosebumps just like right now. And it literally, like, for somebody to believe in me like that I had on my wall is amazing. So I couldn't be more thankful to have him as a friend, to consider him a brother. Like I said, I spent a lot of time talking to him on the phone, and I love every second of it. And I think he's just one of the greatest people that I could ever meet and paintball could ever have. Right.
Yeah.
So it's great.
That's awesome. You mentioned so many, I think, what we would consider legends, right? Like Bobby, LB, Chris Soya. I don't know if it's truly hit you yet, but in 15 years from now, there's going to be somebody else doing a podcast and people in the sports, they're going to look back and you're going to be one of those legends that they then look to. Like, do you realize that you're in that category now for some people?
I don't, it's funny too, because Alex Goldman asked me just I think it's Friday or Saturday night. I was out with my wife and he's like, you're going to go to the Hall of Fame. And I was like, I don't think
quick
so.
Too.
And well, I do have the world's fastest professional point. But the biggest thing is it wasn't like I was the greatest player, but I was a guy to step up to make sure that everybody on that team, because it takes a team to win a championship, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen overnight. The stars have to align. Everything has to work out, but it takes a team to truly make it happen. And at the end of the day, when you win, the team is rewarded, not just one individual, right?
Yeah.
And I played with a lot of guys that truly stand out over a lot of other people. And, they never, ever took it to their head, and they just were happy to be a part of the team. And it's like, so if they're happy and how great they are and how elite what I consider them to be is just like, if I can help be responsible for that, then I love every second of it. So I'll take GM of the Hall of Fame if they want to give me one right now, though. So it works out.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, with how much passion you bring to everything that you've done in your life so far, like, yeah, I could totally see that. Get that jacket, get you on the stage.
Yeah, that might be an emotional speech there, but no, it's to put it all together and have that ability. And even when I was like helping Randy Smith build the team, right? Like I had a lot of input from a lot of people, and you're going to have people coming at you left and right, but how you go through it and what's best for the team. And like that to me is like, that's how you win, right? Like, and there's going to be some people who do exactly that, but then they will never win. And I just had the opportunity to put the right people together, and we got a lot of wins. And, I think that we could have gotten more wins, but at the same time, like I said, it takes a lot to win a paintball tournament. Look at Paintball Fit. They just came out and they had one of the hardest Sundays I've ever, it wasn't like they had a walk in the park. They had a really, really competitive Sunday, and they went and proved to the world how hard they work and what they just did from wherever they came from or anything else. And then look what happened, a day or two later, you have Impact changing their roster. The second that they lose the World Cup, they're like, boom, 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 adjustments. And that's how I think you got to win championships. Derek Jeter used to talk about in his documentary. Yeah. He would talk about how pissed he would get at the Yankees because they got rid of his friends or whatever it may be. But they wanted what was best for the team, and then they continue to win championships. And I think that you have to keep that mentality. And I think that, a lot of people don't understand it, or they don't know where to begin with it. And that's okay, because you're not going to have like that ability. But the people that I've been surrounded with and everything else, they gave me that inspiration, and I try to do what's best for the team.
Where does that drive come from? Because obviously a lot of professional paintball players, you have to live such a consistent life to get to that level, and then not even just get to the level, but to be on a winning level like you have. So where does that come from?
Yes. I don't know if I ever had to find it or if I always just had it, but at the same time, I'd wake up and there'll be days everybody has their moments where they're doubting something or whatever it may be.
Sure.
But if you just continue, if you sit back and you look, and I had the opportunity to play paintball as much as I wanted, and I didn't have to blink an eye other than focus on being great at paintball, or take care of this team that truly is great. Then it's like, what do I have to be? There's nothing to be mad about other than just go be great. And it's like, there's nothing that should hold anybody back from that, other than you're gonna have to sacrifice a lot. I went through tons of girlfriends, a lot of family members. I didn't get to see a lot of like my family at all. My parents just kind of had to accept the fact that like this is what I wanted to do, and that was one of the things I talked about like when I talked about retiring was thank you for just understanding the fact of not holding me back, right? And when you find that kind of motivation, or when you're out running or anything else, it's just like sometimes you're just given that gift, or you just have that passion for it, and it's like not everybody's going to have it, and I wouldn't expect everybody to, but at the same time, like I was lucky enough to have it, and I still feel like I have the fire to love the game as much as I do. So, it's I don't think you can acquire it. I think it's something you have to have. Right. And you'll see it like other teams, right? Like I never thought Marcelo would ever leave Dynasty. I thought between him and Ryan, they would ride that all the way until to the very end, right? Like Sue, Ryan, and those guys all retire. Marcelo would have been the next one to step up to control everything and make sure that team was great. And Marcelo does a good job by, helping like raise some of the guys who are going to be truly great, like professional paintball players. And he works with a lot of people like that. So it's like, I never saw him going anywhere else, but he did. And now that leaves opportunity for other people to step up. But he is a great leader. Brady Stanzak, that guy right there, people don't understand. Not only is he great at poker, but what he understands with the game is truly inspirational, just for the fact of he's a leader, right? He doesn't care if you don't he doesn't care about your opinion, if you don't like him or anything else. He just wants the team to win, and he will do everything in his power for the team to win. He'll sacrifice himself and not being on that field so the team can win. He is truly, I've never got the opportunity to play on a team with him in a professional event. That's some guy I would like to really had on my team. Is Stanzak. He knows how to just get the grit out in somebody. He understands so much about the game, and he is a great leader. And I think like he's inspirational. And I think, having him as a friend is somebody that gave me that energy. Right. And then, there's other people even like Tyler Harmon or Alex Goldman that are truly elite at paintball. Right. But those are two different people. Tyler Harmon I got to play paintball with like for the last 3 years. And that guy he might've been the best teammate I've ever had, just for the fact of he never asked for one thing. He was appreciative of everything. He was open to ideas, and he just played his heart out every single time he went out there. And that's a guy that you want to have on your squad as much as you can. So yeah, he's inspirational.
Yeah, you can see that from Tyler's just the fire in his eyes. And like some people say they have it, and I'm passionate, but like you can truly see it whenever Tyler talks. You feel it,
Yeah, 100%. And who I really think that's coming into that same role is how much they've developed and sacrificed is Ronnie Dizon. Obviously I spent a lot of time with Ronnie and everything else, but he does everything in his life that, is pushing him in the direction to become truly elite. And not only he's already a winner, but he still is hungry for all of that and then some, right? He's a great teammate. He's not selfish. He goes and plays. Like he's playing right now in cold weather and is like outside. And I'm just like, I live down by the beach and I'm like, 50 degrees. I don't know yet. So,
cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had Ronnie on last week, and for those that haven't seen it yet, he talks about his routine, and he talks about how he literally from the moment he wakes up till he goes to bed, he lives, eats, and sleeps paintball. He's working out 2 or 3 times a day, working on the business side of it. And you're right, Ronnie's already at a great level, but I don't even think he's tapped into it yet.
Yeah, he's definitely destined for greatness. I have a lot of faith in him. When I walked away from the team, like when I had to talk with Randy, I told him that was the guy that I felt, helps lead this team, and which is great because he came in as when the team was built as one of the kids who came from a divisional team, right? He wasn't already a pro or anything else, but and Randy used to call him Lionheart because he knew he had a huge heart and he wanted to be great at the game. And he might not have talked about it last week or whatnot, but I remember when Ronnie got cut and then we got him back, and we were lucky to get him back. Like he was one day away from going to another team, and we got the opportunity to get him back, and he came back with, it was never skipped a beat. So
that's cool for his story, right? Because similar to yours, where he jumped on the team as a young kid, and now years later, he now gets to give that gift back to the next generation and help grow the next part of Houston Heat. And that alone will unlock something great in him and to elevate his game even more. Yep.
He is, he's definitely destined for greatness, and I truly believe in him. And he's still got a lot of experience around him too. You got to look at somebody like Brian Moorhead. That guy, another guy that's so great of a teammate. He doesn't ask for a lot. He is literally just happy to be there. But at the same time, like he's been around championship players, and then he's developed himself into a championship player. I remember when I felt like he didn't feel like he was greatness until he won a World Cup, but he was the MVP of the World Cup that we won. And it was just like, he truly put himself in another like tax bracket essentially, right? Where it's like, okay, this guy, I don't know if Ryan even ever played divisional paintball, because when he came off the rip, he literally came off into like a group of guys, and where he lived at the time, kind of like Tyler, he got the opportunity to play pro at such a young age, and he just accomplished so much with it. And he really truly is a guy that helps lead with Houston Heat as well. So
yeah, it's cool. He's one of those people that just naturally have it that you talked about earlier. I think we see this every few years, and I think you and I, being 38, we've experienced this a while ago when our childhood heroes, retired and moved on to whatever the next chapter is. It almost seems earth shattering. Like, wow, I can't believe, like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
I think we're at a point in the sport where we're going to see more and more players of who are the icons in the game right now starting to move on to the next chapter, right? Like we've got you and a bunch of other folks who are getting up there in age. What advice would you give to players that are thinking about that and that are going to step away in the next few years?
I think a lot of them, they still have the fire to play in the game, which I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I still love the game a lot.
Sure.
I think that they're never going to lose that. I just think that they need to be able to, kind of come with terms with being okay that they're not going to practice every single weekend, or, they have to kind of come to terms with, hey, like, this was my path and I rode it as long as I could. Now there's other things in real life, and it happens in every sport, right? Like as far as even boxers and everything else. And like you said, we just saw Mike Tyson go into a boxing ring for an exhibition match, and it was like, yeah, he got paid a bunch of money, but at the same time, like he's always a competitor at heart, right?
Yeah.
And it's like some guys, it's financially, whatever the game has done for him. If you're into paintball and you're making money on it, continue to try to do things to still make money on it. And there's a lot of opportunity out there outside of that, and it just depends how much they apply themselves. But don't quit until you think you're ready, and then really give yourself time to think about it. But at the same time, just I guess just really just sit down and think about, there's opportunity everywhere. And it's, if you perfected something to become a professional paintball player, you can do that in real life too, right?
Yeah.
You have that opportunity, or you have that mindset of, becoming great at something else, especially because people don't realize how hard it is to become a professional paintball player, right? It's very, very limited on the opportunities to get into the pros now, and as it should be. And it's even harder with other professional sports, but at the same time, if you can have that ability to chase that dream, then you have the ability to go and be successful outside of paintball. You just got to give yourself that. You got to accept that, right? So I guess that's my biggest thing. Just know that you can come pro in a sport like this, and you can do the same thing outside in real life too. So I mean, maybe who knows? Maybe you can become more successful.
Yeah, exactly. That's pure gold. Like I hope people understand what you just said is what so many people, whether you're a professional athlete or you're in some other, profession, is your job. When you've excelled at something, the skills that you've learned through that, you can apply that to something else too. And I think people don't do that because they go through like the imposter syndrome of like, well, I can't do that. Like I'm going to lose my identity. There's no way I would be as good as what I am here. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's going to help so many people.
Yeah.
So we've come to one of my favorite parts of the show. I always end my episodes with, I ask my guests, I give them the opportunity to ask a question that I will then ask my next week's guest that question, and they won't know it. Right. And so,
okay. Do I get to know who the guest is?
Oh, totally. Yeah. So I had Ronnie on last week. So it's so cool that like you and him are, back to back. Ronnie didn't know that he was asking this question to you. And so it's cool. Like it's that connection without knowing it.
Yeah,
and then you'll get to ask a question to whoever my next week's guest is. So start thinking about a question.
Okay.
This is a good one from Ronnie. So he said, if you could talk to yourself as a young person or kid who just got into the sport, like brand new into it, and you were to give them one piece of advice, what would it be? And now that you're, 20, 30 years past that, what would you change, if anything?
Practice to learn. That's going to be my answer on that one, because a lot of people, you have their weekend warriors, right? And this is where I tell people, if they get the opportunity to play during the week, practice your weakness. A lot of times the only time you have with your team is on the weekends because, real life with people and everything else. Don't always think that because you're winning at every single point and everything else. Don't cheat at practice. I grew up in a different realm in Chicago and in Aftershock and everything else. Like that was different. But as I grew up, and once you become an honest player and you start taking accountability for wanting to learn how to play correctly, you become a better player, and then you don't doubt any of your abilities. Nerves go away because you've prepared yourself for these moments. And if you look at it, just even on the guys' last Super Bowl that the Eagles just played, like it's Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, they talk about being fearless because they prepared for these moments. Prepare for those moments where you don't think twice about it, and you've prepared so hard that it just becomes natural. That's what the Russians are really good at. They practice so hard and they practice so many scenarios that it just becomes natural to them. And there's a lot of people who don't do that, even in the pros now. They don't take accountability for them being, weak at something. And it's like, hey, if you have that opportunity to become stronger at it, practice your weaknesses, practice to learn. Losing is learning. And, just always, have fun with the game. Don't lose that. Like once you lose that I'm having fun mentality, then, then I'm not really sure if this game's for you anymore, because we all started for the same reasons, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Before we jump into the second question that he had, I kind of want to poke on that a little bit, because I've heard a few pros say this, is there's at some point in their career where like it shifts to where you almost have to put your ego aside and be vulnerable. Like, hey, I messed up here. I need to learn. And
Yes.
I think a lot of players don't ever get to that point. How did you do that? Like, what was that shift for you in your mind?
You know, I had a lot of elite players around me, right? And the guys like Tyler, Fedorov, Mishka, they were always willing to trust in the coach, as long as, like, you know, if I guess not say always willing to trust in the coach. It's, I guess the mentality came from Jason Chosen. He literally talks about,
Wow.
you know, hey, if you guys believe in me, then I think that we will truly win. And the first tournament we all got to play together, outside of, or I guess our first tournament we won together, we all just believed in him. And there was moments where we were down, but as long as we believed in the game plan, then we knew it would go to another level, right? And it worked out several times for us. And being around so many great players and how they would take in things from the coach, like, I just wasn't always right. And I had to be able to swallow that. And, you know, it happened for me 10, 12 years ago. But at the same time, the biggest thing that Jason Chosen ever told me was, he's like, hey, you're a good paintball player, but you need to practice more. He's like, you need to practice so much more, because you got to think about how much time all these other guys have ahead of me, right? Where I thought if I was just playing on the weekends, like every weekend, it was enough. And you got to think about the Russians. Even when they came to our team, they were probably 10,000 hours over me in practice, because they're 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. And I thought I was playing a lot, and I wasn't. But it's just me looking in the mirror, swallowing my pride. And I think that, you know, you have to have that mentality where there's somebody that's going to be better than you. But at the same time, if you want to not have that moment, then you got to go and prepare for those moments. And it's just putting in the time, putting in that much, like, more effort. Or like you said with Ronnie earlier, he's training three different times a day. And those are the things that will take you over the top. Look at how much Paintball Fit practice, and people didn't even understand it. And they're like, oh, you know, they didn't have a budget or anything else. It wasn't about their budget. It was about, like, how much hard work they put in to have that moment, right? And now we're going to see probably a different Paintball Fit because they got over that hump. And it's like, if people don't take accountability and, like, be able to swallow their pride and listen to their coach, then they won't succeed. And I can almost guarantee that, just because the fact of you're not being open to things of being wrong. And it's okay. It's okay to be wrong, but at the same time, it's how well you adjust from there.
Yeah, it sounds like you and the rest of the folks who have made it to that elite level at some point had to, you know, walk into your bathroom and stare in the mirror and, like, have a conversation with yourself, like, hey, this has to change.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, I probably wasn't the easiest to coach, but at the same time, like, with, like, even with Todd or even Jason and, I mean, even Jeremy Somm back in the day, like, they see the game differently as a coach. And, you know, and it's like, hey, like, if they're holding me accountable for things, then maybe I should, you know, they're probably telling me something that they're not telling me things to hurt me. So it's like, you know, got to take their advice and go from there.
Yes. So, somebody I looked at as a mentor for a long time told me, and it clicked. She was like, feedback is a gift. Like, if somebody's giving you feedback, that's their choice. They don't have to say those things. They don't have to offer
100%.
Advice.
And I have moments like that too, where I'm like, I'm just not going to tell that guy, like, why he's not going to succeed, because that guy's not my responsibility, or he's got a bad attitude. So it's like, I don't owe it to him to do that. But there's a lot more guys that are willing to listen and everything else that I can make them better. So it's like, you know, it's like you said, just the feedback it's not necessary unless somebody cares. Yeah. And if somebody's willing to give it, then I think that people should be willing to accept it.
Yeah, I love that. Let's jump back to the second part of Ronnie's question. Would you have changed anything from your career when you started as a kid?
No. You know, I had to struggle as a kid. I had 2 jobs to pay for my paint. I was telling somebody this, and I said it before in the Play the Game podcast. I used to sleep at Johnny Rathbun's office. He used to let me sleep like on the turf in his couch or anything like that. Like, he had a paintball field. I would get off work, go there, play, go back. You know, he'd let me sleep and stay for the weekend, and I'd go right back home and go back to work. And it's just like, I truly believe that if I didn't go through those kind of things, or if it was all handed to me, I probably wouldn't appreciate it as much. I probably wouldn't have become the person I am today in paintball, or got to experience all those moments. So there's not one thing that I would change. I might have probably wanted a couple other guys on the team to say that I got to play with. but that'd be about it, really. I mean, I truly love the fact of everything I got to share with Houston Heat, all the moments, the amount of time and memories that we got to do together. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. It's such a cool story that you wrote for your career. And honestly, like, I hope this comes across in a nice way. I don't even think you've tapped into what your legacy on the sport is yet. Like, yeah, you've played, but I think all the off-field stuff now, that you're going to bring all that energy that you brought on the field to off the field.
I actually was thinking about that yesterday. I got a phone call from somebody about doing some more things. And I'm like, man, I should have retired sooner. I'm like, there's the opportunities that are coming here are great. I'm like, this is awesome. But at the same time, no, I loved every second on the field. And I do appreciate you for even for seeing it that way, because it's not that I need to be reminded of it, but it's great knowing the fact that, like, if I made an impact and things like that, and, for people to know about paintball and then they think about me, makes me truly, truly happy.
Yeah. You're just at the start of it, man. I'm telling you, I see it. All right. I've given you enough time. I've stalled. Now you get to ask a question to next week's guest.
Do I get to know who the next week's guest is?
Nope.
Okay. So I got to ask them something. It's a paintball player?
It is a paintball player. Yeah. I'll tell you off air who it is.
Okay. Let's see. If you have a choice when you die for people to know that you played paintball and you leave a legacy, I asked this to Nick Laval one day, you leave a legacy and they just know you as the greatest player forever, or say if you die and nobody knows anything about you, but you've won as many things as there is to win, like, which one would you choose, right? Like, what kind of person do you want to be known as? The guy that was a champion that everybody knows you as, or the guy that just walked away but knows to himself that he truly was great, right? So you're going to have players that, and I'll give a perfect example of somebody, his name is Mishka. People don't understand. That guy's got 7 World Cups. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't do interviews. He's happy to be there. He's probably older than most, and he's a guy that I look at. He's not flashy, and he works hard every single day. And it's like that to me, like, he's a person who would walk away and doesn't matter what anybody thinks of him. But at the same time, like, I played with other guys that they want everybody to know how it is, right? And I want to know, like, if people think that, like, which way they would go with it, right? Because there's some people who truly don't care. They don't care if anybody knows that they were that guy, or they do care and they want everybody to know. So it's always curious to see, like, how that goes. Does that make sense?
100%. And when you find out the next guest that it is, you're gonna be like, oh my God, I can't wait to ask that. It's gonna be so good.
Good. I'm glad it's gonna pertain to him. So yeah, it works.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because I mean, I've had questions from, like, is Cyril a super chowder? I've had money questions about, like, if you won money in paintball, what would you do with it? So it's been cool to see people's personalities come out, but then also, people are going pretty deep and ask some really deep questions about it.
Yeah.
And it's cool because it ties guests together without even knowing they're tied together.
Yeah. 100%.
So cool. Well, Chad, thank you so much for being on. It's been such an honor watching your journey, obviously, from when I was a kid, watching you grow up to now being on the field and capturing some of your last moments, and to now being in a spot where I can watch you transition into the next part of your career. It's so cool. It's been an honor getting to know you and be around you.
No, thank you. Thank you for, taking the opportunity to, like I said, like, you guys, like, everything you do, like I said, even with, like, Alex Frazier and Hormesis and, BFP, shout out to Lone Wolf, like, everything that they've done in paintball, it's just, there's so many different things with paintball, and everybody who puts it all together and makes this community great. I can't truly be more inspired by, and be a part of it is truly amazing. So I can't thank you enough, and the paintball world alone, I can't thank enough. So.
And now you're part of it. You're on the other side of it now. You get to join us.
Now we're on the fun side.
Yeah, exactly. There's no stress over here. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of the Shelda Podcast, and we'll catch you next week.